Hey guys, welcome to a long overdue update on the shuttle build. Done quite a bit. Right now you can see over here, kind of see, and I'll post pictures on Discord late or on HLI later today. But you can kind of see where the tower is starting to get lights. Let me see if I can. There, that's better. You can see that better. These floors have got lights on them. These floors are not yet installed. And so, I decided I would do a video of that. And as usual, the ever trusty HLI FX01 is still sitting on the bench going. Hasn't been going continuously because I've been having to do lighting tests, but I figured out how with some Arduino wires I could light the tower and still leave it running. So let me flip back over to the bench. My plan is I'm going to show you how I'm doing each of the floors, because the floors need to be, I'm putting a square of LED tape like this, but I don't know if this is going to show on camera very well. What I'm trying to avoid is you can see really there and there, not so bad there or there. How when I did this first one, I did it on the plastic. I attached the LED strip to the floor and inadvertently melted the plastic. So let me go grab a floor. It's across the room. I've moved my solder station over to the bench where I videotape or film, so that it's a little bit easier to film it. This was the second one I was going to do, and that's what they look like before any wires are attached. But I'm going to have to pull this tape back off, stick it to the tile, which is not the best way, and then solder it and put it back on here. This happens to be floor 7. This is floor 5, which is the next one in line. And I'm putting my junctions for all the wiring on the back here. And let me see if I can point out what I'm doing. Not really. There are little windows in the red tower in the center. I'm running the wires from the back down into the tower, and they will go further down. I will get pictures of that posted at some point so that you can see it over on HLI. But before I do the LED tape, let me show you what else I've been doing on the model, because I've done quite a bit. It's been a few days, well, a couple of weeks since I've done anything to it. I've started to build some of the arms that swing out. Still contemplating how I'm going to actually, if I'm going to be able to do any lighting on these. Most of these should have lights, but it would be, each one of these, like this, would probably have about 10 lights on there, and that's just overkill. I like the subtle lighting I've got here. I might do some LED, or not LED, but some side emit fiber optics. We'll just have to see. The crane is most of the way built. It attaches to the top of this one here, so I have not yet glued it down. You can see where the paint, when I painted it, it was in place, so it should be fine. But I need to leave it loose so I can put a pin in that spot right there. And then once the pin is there and it's glued down and it's able to rotate on the top of the tower, I'll just slide this back in and glue it in place. Got a few parts painted up in here. Right now, my next important trick, or rough trick, is going to be wrapping a fence around this piece. And there's the pin for the crane on top of the tower. Slide this over here, as well as this. And on the last Sunday stream, I started working on the shuttle body itself. Shuttle body went together really well. This is not too bad. The tail's pretty good. Some seam work bottom seam, not going to be too worried about because it's going to be pressed up against the fuel cells. But I don't like how bad the seams are and how hard it is to get the shuttle to actually close correctly. So I might just be putting a piece of strip styrene in there and gluing it shut solid, just so that, I'll leave the seam here visible because it's supposed to be doors along with these, but I'll glue it solid to where it's not going to open anymore, which means the radiator fins won't be installed either. So let me put this out of the way and now start working on what this video is truly about. So the first thing I'm doing is, if you look, I've got my LED tape has the little round pads, copper pads for the solder. And what I'm doing is I'm literally cutting right to the edge of those on each piece so that when I do the soldering, because the positive side is going to the center, and so when I go do the soldering, I want those pads as close to actually being the edge of the LED tape as I can get. This one's actually a better one. You can see where it is actually onto the edge. So I do that on both sides of all 4 strips. I'm not going to pull the tape yet, and I'm not sure if I'm going to use what some people do. Boyd does it regularly. I don't think I'm going to super glue these down because they're in a spot where there should be no pressure ever for these things. I may regret that later on down the line, a couple of years from now, but I'll deal with that if it happens. And this method is actually really, depending on what you're doing, the method that I'm using for the positive side works well if you're jumpering or if you're doing a closed loop like I'm going to. So first thing I do, and it doesn't have to be 100% straight. You can see on here and on here there's enough room that you can maneuver the tape a little bit once it's actually soldered together. So positive loop is going to positive leg of the tape goes to the inside. I'm taping it down just so that I can actually solder to it while it's still free floating, because like I said, there is actually, I don't think I said it, but there will be no wire on the positive side. It is just a solder joint based on the position of the pads. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. You can't see it because it is so far zoomed out, but let me zoom in. Okay, now if you see, the pads are overlapping, so I can get a pretty good solder joint right there. And let me back it out just a hair. Pardon me while I get quiet for a second. I just want to look and see. Saw a couple of things pop up on Discord. Okay. Let me flip back over here. And this tape is just what is it? It's a washi masking tape. I also use it for when I'm blocking. What is it? Masking for painting. And I just saw this isn't going to work well because this piece is slightly crooked. You want as close to 90 degrees as you can, otherwise fiddling with it to get it back to where all the pads are covered, or are crossing. Oops, I'm going to just move that one. And so basically what I'm doing is I'm making a square out of the LED tape. And I'm going to be using magnet wire still, because that's what I've been using for a while. One roll of magnet, or two rolls of magnet wire, come really close to being almost a lifetime supply. I need to move this one up just a hair. So now I've got all the pads. You should be able to see it. You saw this one already. All the pads, or you saw this one already. These three pads are lined up to where I can do a solder joint on top of them and have no problem. Like I said, I'm using magnet wire. The way I'm doing this is a little bit different. I'm leaving the magnet wire connected, and it used to be that I would have my iron at like 700, 750 degrees so that it would melt the phenolic or coating off of the wire. Stop doing that. Talk to Spencer Wolf. That's a shout out, Spence. And since talking to Spence, I'm no longer burning up my soldering iron tips near as quickly, because I'm only doing about 550. That's plenty hot enough to melt most solder, but it's not hot enough to melt the ceramic off of this wire here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay it down here like this, and I'm trying to keep it on the pad so that it doesn't extend over and create, when the soldering is done, create basically a divot in the center where the wire's sticking out. So let me turn on the iron, like I said, set to 550 degrees. Also, another tip from Spence is I'm not using a small pointy tip like I used to. I'm using a fat tip because there's more heating surface. And tips do wear out. I have one over there that is half the tip is gone because it just melted off as I was, I've used it that much. So the iron says it's about 550 degrees, but let's find out. And I do this, I always make sure you're not going to be able to see it, I don't think. Let me zoom in just a hair, give you guys a little bit better shot of what I'm doing. And I will look up every now and then to make sure that I'm still on screen. So what I'm doing is looking to see there. The solder has gone liquid, which means the soldering iron is hot. And I'm actually at the extent of the soldering iron cord, so I just moved the iron itself. So now I'm just going to touch this to the pads, and I'm hitting the top of the iron, but the solder is flowing over the side, and hopefully, nope, that's not quite. I need to get it down to the bottom pad as well. And there is a good join. Me. Set that down. Let me pull about way too much. I need probably a foot at most on all of these. Instead, I'm doing about 1.5 to 2 feet. Because like I said, I have bunches of magnet wire. Let me see, is this close enough? It is not quite close enough. So I need to get a jumper wire. Hang on just a second while I get a lead. Because what I tend to do anytime I do any wiring, I'm constantly checking to make sure everything works. Because it really sucks when you're not checking, and then you get to the end and you're like, which point is not working? So I've got an Arduino lead here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to, hang on just a second. Funny things happen when you use your phone as a camera. So I'm using an Arduino lead for my negative leg. Helps if I turn on the power, huh? So I've got this set right now. It's at 9.5. That leg's good. That leg's good. And obviously these other two are not yet. Let me turn off the power on the multimeter. Pull this wire out of the way. And now I'm going to do the other 3 legs of the LED tape. And I do all 4 legs on the LED tape. I join them all. And the way I've been doing this is it's kind of almost in series, except for LED tape. If I know from experience, if a piece of LED tape goes out, or an LED on the LED tape goes out, it still works to the end. So now, and the solder here actually is becoming structural for this piece. Move that just a hair. There. And now if you see, each of those pads is soldered together within that one next to it. So now I can take this wire, I'll drop it underneath here, take the tape off, and the first leg that I do on the green wire is going to be just as long when I get done as that wire. First thing I do, strip the ceramic off with the lighter, or torch actually, and I'm going to tape the wire down just like I did the red wire so that it stays in place while I'm soldering it. Trust me, this is going a lot faster than it has. The first one of these took me about an hour. And as I do more and more of them, they go faster and faster. So there's a good join there. Now I no longer need the Arduino wire as a jumper because I'm going to have my red and my green wire both hooked up to the power, which is currently turned off. Never, ever, ever solder on a live circuit. I actually inadvertently did it the other day, and I've run into this before, but I didn't realize how quickly it will spike, especially with my soldering unit, because my soldering unit also contains my power supply. It spiked the LED and blew it just instantly. So let me make sure these two are the same length. Just a hair longer on the green. Make sure that both are good. Whoops. That was just the torch falling over. So there's the red hooked up. And the green hooked up. So I have light on the that one leg. Kind of funny, yesterday I did a little bit of a quiz thing on Discord because I was hooked up here and I did the green wire here. Didn't do it here. So I was like, why didn't that work? And I realized it, so I took a picture, put it on Discord, and we had a good time for about 15-20 minutes talking about what was wrong with that circuit because I turned it on. Spence was close. He said my negatives, but he didn't say what was wrong with my negatives. It was, like I said, it was a good time on Discord. So let me take that. And what I'm doing, part of what I'm doing, because I don't have enough hands to hold this wire down and solder at the same time, I'm making sure that I'm bending the magnet wire, which is very springy, as a lot of people have said. I'm bending it down so that when I push it down here and then tape it, it is actually holding itself down to that pad. Then I'll just take, like I did on the other side, heat some solder up on top of it. It's kind of funny that one side is the only side that's heating hot enough to melt the solder. And this sometimes can be a pain. Yeah, because if you look right now, there. Oh, that's hot. So what I had to do just now is the wire itself was sticking out over the side of the pad, or right on the side of the pad, and so it refused to bond in the middle of the solder, which is what I need. So I just pushed it over. Usually I will grab my tweezers and do that. This time I did my finger and it got hot. So and if you look, let's see if I can zoom in on that. So if you look right there, the wire is running pretty much over the center of the pad. And off screen, every time I pick up my soldering iron, every time I put it down, I'm actually cleaning it in the brass shavings. So now I'll do this. I think I've got the wrong side. For some reason, one side of this iron is a little bit hotter than the other. Okay, you see the buildup there. And there's a perfect solder joint. Beautiful. And then these are invaluable. They're great for doing, when you're doing rigging on ships. They're great to cut for cutting threads. They're also sharp enough to come in here, get right up next to that join. I'm not sure if I got it or not. Not quite. But you get right up to that solder joint and you can clip it really, really close. That way you don't end up having a short later on because that little tab shifted over and touched your positive line. So again, melting off the insulation here. This time I'm going to go from this way, from the bottom pad here. There I don't know if you saw it. It keeps sticking up. Let's see. Okay. Roughly the center of the pad. I'm used to doing live streams, so I keep looking up to see the chat. And I know this is just a video, so that one's not quite as pretty as the last one. But the key thing is the solder is trapped in that ball. And that ball, while it looks big compared to the pad, isn't bad. It's not gonna, nothing's gonna heat this solder back up to the temperature that it's gonna flow over and short out or anything. Oh, I just thought of something. Before I connect this one, like I said, always test. I forgot to test that first leg there. Works like a champ. And it's even worse that I'm sitting here working off camera. I apologize for that, guys. There. So this is the one that I did off camera, inadvertently off camera. This is the one that I'm about to do. Solder. There's some buildup of solder on the tip. And see there, the wire is staying, it's fighting with me, staying outside of the solder bubble. So let me get the wire. Actually, let me pull this tape. It's not staying, it's on the very edge of the bubble, not a good join. So let me grab it, shift it. Now it's inside of the solder bubble. When I flip the switch, 3 out of 4 legs is working, or are working. So all I got to do is cut that wire off, do one more join, and this will be ready to be attached to the next floor. So, and these things are extremely sharp. If you get a set, be really careful because that will cut you. So, last one, and I'm not sure if you guys realize that the way I'm doing these is strategic so that I'm right-handed. I'm keeping my solder wire running to where I can get to this joint really easy with my right hand. And right here I've got a wire sticking out a little bit more than I like. Well, I ended up chewing up the white plastic instead. That should be okay. I didn't cut through the copper, and I almost forgot to strip the ceramic off of here. That does, because I stripped the whole thing back, it does make it possible for this to short out, but I've only got the one red wire, the one positive wire going to it, so it shouldn't be a problem. There shouldn't be anything that's going to cause it to short. Unless, of course, one of these gets pushed over into one of these solder joints. So, damn it. There went my PG rating. So, okay, that's the side. That one's good. Take this last one. And like I said, I've done this before. This is how I've done several solder joints with using LED tape. Just laying the wire against it like this instead of running each one individually, because like I said earlier, a bad LED does not kill the circuit. And with where this is going to be, if it goes out, it's going to be really painful to be able to fix it. So let me clip that off. I already cut it. I just realized I'm clipping it off while it's stuck down, and there you go. All that is left to do, keep zooming out, So now all that's left to do is to peel the tape off. Being careful not to let it break the positive solder joint. So I can get the solder out of the way. Let me turn off the soldering iron. I'm not going to unplug, or I'm not going to disconnect it from the power supply. That can come off. So another, actually, no, I'm not going to, I was about to twist it, but I'm not going to twist it until I get to the, until I get it attached here. So like I said, this is floor 5. I'm going to move this over top because I'm not going to go straight to putting this on here. Once I attach it here and twist the wire, I'm going to call this a video. So I'm going to put this using the tape on the back. I'm going to tape it on here like this. If you see my solder, where my solder points where my power comes in and out of the string are going to be towards the back. This is the back of the piece. And it's just a matter of doing basically the same thing you would do with the 3M tape on the back of the solder tape. And it's, I will say, this is some cheap, think Chinese, China is where I got it, solder tape. So it has had some funky issues, but nothing is broke yet. And that's the other thing. That's why I have this tower now sitting here running 24 hours a day. I always do that with my LEDs. I burn them in, you know, it's suggested to burn them in for 8 to 12 hours. I tend to burn them in for 2 to 3 weeks. Because if they last that long, they're going to last just about forever. And so here I'm having an issue with the tape. The tape pulled some of the sticky stuff with it, or the backing did. Just same thing on this one here. That one came easily. Let go. That is the one thing too, is that it tends to grab you. The first one that I did this way, I stuck it down to the plastic part, and it was just a pain to get underneath to get the rest of it. I stuck the first, after I did the first one, I stuck it down, and it was pain to get to the rest of the white paper that gets pulled off of here. So I fight with it a little bit now. That one stuck a little bit to the paper again. And where they go underneath, you got to be a little bit careful and pull the paper out. So this is still working. By the way, if anybody's curious, that is, I'm running this at 9 volts. And like I said, this, I could do it this way where the wires come straight out. But what the wires are going to do is they're going to go from here back into here. So what I'm doing is this leg that the wires are on is what I put down. So I'll just kind of lay it in place, straightening it out as needed. That's actually a little bit further back than it needs to be. Okay, that should be good. That should be good. So two last tests actually. So now that I've done that, I tend to wrap my wires, twist them so that they stay together, and it's extremely important when I'm trying to put them down through that tube. And I'll take the camera down and show you in a second what I'm talking about. But I wrap the wire so that it will stay as a single piece. I'll actually, when I go to put it through the tube, I'm playing with styrene tubes and things like that to be able to do it. Because we're now to the point where my tweezers won't make it far enough up in there. And this is, I'll finish wrapping this once I get off screen, or once I finish the video. So what I do, sorry for my giant hand. So what I do is, if you look there, and I'm on the front side, see how the lights are in there, and then here in the back, let me see, move this clamp. Clamps aren't doing anything besides just holding it in place. I don't know if I can get into where, there, you can see the wire runs into one of the windows on the central tower. So that's what I've been doing here lately. I love the way this tower is coming out. It looks beautiful to me. It doesn't look like the lit up Christmas tree on the box, but I think it works really well. So that's it for now. Like and subscribe. Stop by HobbyLink International Community. You know, great bunch of guys over there. And like I said, like I usually say like and subscribe, or don't. That is completely up to you. But stop by HobbyLink International if you like seeing things like this, seeing modeling, because there's a great bunch of guys over there that do all kinds of stuff like this. So with that, I am going to call this a video, and I will catch you on the flip side. Talk to you later. Bye.